I just drove to the cabin. The lake was still, 3 hours north of the city, and my phone was already lighting up. I turned it face down on the passenger seat and kept driving. The November sunset painted the Adirondack peaks in shades of amber and rust, the kind of light that makes everything look like it's ending. Which, I suppose, it was. Marcus had made it clear I shouldn't attend the announcement dinner. Not in those exact words, he never said things directly. He'd mentioned 3 times over breakfast that morning how the James Beard Foundation preferred intimate gatherings for their nomination reveals. How his publicist thought too many people at the table might dilute the narrative. How his mother had already RSVP'd and there were only so many seats. I'd spent 4 years building Corvo from the ground up. Every menu, every dish, every relationship with our farmers and fishermen. While Marcus worked the dining room and charmed investors, I was in the kitchen at dawn breaking down whole fish and testing the acidity in my vinaigrettes. The pasta dough recipe that food writers called transcendent, I'd tested 67 variations before I got it right. The brown butter and sage sauce they photographed for Bon Appetit, that was mine. But tonight, at the Peninsula Hotel in Midtown, Marcus would sit at a table with his mother, Victoria, his publicist, and 3 investors who'd never set foot in our kitchen. The James Beard Foundation was announcing the nominees for Best New Restaurant. And if we made the list, Marcus wanted to be surrounded by people who fit the story he'd been telling. The story where he was the visionary chef-owner, and I was, what exactly? The silent partner who happened to be his wife? The cabin appeared through the trees exactly as I remembered it. My grandmother had left it to me when she passed, this small A-frame with its broad windows facing the water. I'd brought Marcus here once, early on. He'd called it rustic in a tone that made clear he meant unimpressive. He'd checked his phone the entire weekend, anxious to get back to the city, to the right restaurants with the right people. I left my suitcase in the car, just walked down to the dock and sat. The water was dark and cold, moving in small swells against the pilings. My phone buzzed in my pocket. I pulled it out, saw Marcus's name, and declined the call. It buzzed again immediately. A text this time. Where are you? I thought you'd at least watch from home. I didn't respond. Another text appeared. Victoria is asking why you're not here. The absurdity of it made me laugh. A sharp sound that scattered across the water. Victoria, who'd spent 4 years telling me I seasoned things too aggressively, that my plating was rustic, that perhaps I should consider front-of-house work since I had such a warm smile. Victoria, who'd introduced Marcus to every investor by saying my son, the chef, while I stood 3 feet away in my whites. I turned the phone off. Not silent off. The sudden quiet felt like surfacing after being underwater too long. The drive back from the lake took 3 hours. But I didn't take it. I stayed. I unpacked the bag I'd thrown together, jeans, sweaters, the comfortable things Marcus said made me look too casual for the circles we were moving in now. I built a fire. I opened the bottle of wine I'd grabbed from the restaurant's private reserve. A Barolo we'd been saving for a special occasion. This felt special enough. At 8:47 p.m., right when the announcement would be happening, I toasted the empty cabin. To Corvo. To 4 years of 16-hour days. To the fishmonger who saved me the best catch because he knew I'd use every part. To the farmer who grew Mizuna just for me because I'd mentioned once that I missed it. To every single dish that bore Marcus's name in reviews while I stayed in the kitchen. I slept better than I had in months. The next morning, I woke to 53 missed calls, 17 voicemails, 42 text messages. I made coffee first, really good coffee, the kind I never had time for in the city, and then I sat on the dock and started reading. The first message was from Marcus, timestamped 9:14 p.m. the night before. Call me now. Then another at 9:22. Elena, this is serious. Call me. 9:31. Where the hell are you? We need you here. I scrolled through them chronologically, watching the desperation build. His publicist had called 6 times. Victoria 3. And then, at 10:47 p.m., a voicemail from a number I didn't recognize. Elena, this is Jennifer Huang from the Times. I'm hoping to speak with you about the situation at Corvo. Please call me back at your earliest convenience. The situation at Corvo. I played the next voicemail. Marcus's voice, tight with panic. They're pulling the nomination. Elena, they're pulling it. That food critic, Caroline Reeves, she stood up during the Q&A after the announcement they filmed everything. "It's going to be everywhere," she said, and I'm quoting, "I've eaten at Corvo 11 times. And I've watched Marcus Morrison take credit for food that came from Elena Morrison's mind and hands." She said it in front of everyone. The investors are freaking out. "My mother is Elena. You need to call me back. We need to fix this." I listened to it twice. Then I made more coffee. The texts from numbers I didn't know started around midnight. Other chefs. Journalists. Someone from the James Beard Foundation. I scrolled through them, sipping my coffee, watching morning light move across the lake. But it was the text from Sophie Chen, my sous chef, that made me smile. Sophie, who'd been with me since the beginning, who knew exactly how much work went into every plate that left our kitchen. "Chef, Caroline Reeves just posted the full video. You need to see this. Also, I quit. I'm not cooking Marcus's food anymore. Call me when you're ready. We should talk about what's next." I opened Instagram. Caroline Reeves's account. She was one of the most respected food critics in the country, with a following that could make or break restaurants. Her latest post had been up for 7 hours and already had 94,000 likes. The video showed the Peninsula Hotel ballroom. Marcus at a table, smiling, Victoria beside him in her signature pearls. The James Beard representative had just announced Corvo as a nominee when someone off-camera asked a question. "Mr. Morrison, your nomination recognizes particularly the pasta service and your innovative approach to regional Italian cuisine. Can you walk us through your creative process for your signature cacio e pepe?" Marcus's smile didn't waver. "It's about understanding the fundamentals and then knowing when to break the rules. The key is, actually, I have a question about that." Caroline Reeves stood up. I could see her in the frame now, elegant in black, her voice calm but carrying across the room. "I've been covering the restaurant scene for 15 years, and I've eaten at Corvo 11 times. I've also done extensive research for my upcoming feature. Marcus, you've given 14 interviews in the past 6 months taking credit for Corvo's menu. But your wife, Elena Morrison, is the chef. She developed every recipe. She manages the kitchen. She built the relationships with every supplier. You handle front of house and business development. So my question is, why are you accepting a nomination for Best New Restaurant when you don't cook the food?" The silence in the video was devastating. I watched Marcus's face go pale, then red. Victoria started to stand, but Caroline wasn't finished. "Furthermore, I reached out to 6 of your former colleagues from the Culinary Institute. You dropped out after 1 semester. Elena graduated top of her class and worked under Chef Saren Gwen at Harvest for 3 years before opening Corvo. The James Beard Foundation's nomination is supposed to recognize culinary excellence. It seems relevant that the person actually responsible for that excellence wasn't even invited to tonight's announcement." Someone tried to speak, but Caroline continued, pulling out her phone. "I'm reading now from an email Elena sent to your investor group in March, which was forwarded to me by someone in this room who felt this needed to be addressed. Quote, while I appreciate Marcus's enthusiasm for the front-of-house experience, I want to clarify for the record that all menu development, recipe creation, and kitchen management is my domain. Marcus's strengths lie in guest relations and business strategy. I'm requesting that future press materials accurately reflect these roles." End quote. That email went unanswered. Instead, the next magazine profile referred to Marcus as the visionary chef behind Corvo's success. The video cut off there, but the caption told the rest of the story. "I've spent 15 years in this industry watching talented women get erased by the men who take credit for their work. Not today. The James Beard Foundation has withdrawn Corvo's nomination pending an ethics review. And frankly, good. Talent deserves recognition. But integrity should be the baseline. Number know your chef's number give credit. Number Corvo cooking scandal." The comments were brutal. Fellow chefs sharing similar stories. Diners saying they'd never return to Corvo. Someone had already created a side-by-side comparison of Marcus's interviews with photos of me in the kitchen, time-stamped from the restaurant's own social media. My phone rang. Marcus again. I let it go to voicemail, then listened. "Elena, please. You have to come back. We can fix this. We'll do a joint interview. We'll set the record straight. We'll make it clear that you're the chef. That this was all a misunderstanding with the press team. The investors are threatening to pull out. There's a board meeting Monday morning, you need to be there." My mother thinks we should release a statement saying you've been dealing with health issues. That you've been taking time away from the kitchen. That's why there was confusion about roles. We can spin this, Elena. Please. Call me back. I deleted the voicemail. Then I called Sophie. Chef. Her voice was warm. How's the lake? Quiet. Tell me what's happening there. Chaos. Marcus tried to do service last night. Couldn't even make a basic marinara. Started yelling at the line when his carbonara broke, which, of course it broke, because he was scrambling the eggs like it's a diner breakfast. I walked out. So did Alex and Tom. Half the kitchen staff left with us. And Marcus? Shut down service at 8 p.m., told the reservation system it was a gas leak. There's a line of cancellations this morning. People saying they refuse to eat food from someone who stole credit. Also, 3 investors have pulled out. The Times is running a full expose tomorrow. Jennifer Huang has been trying to reach you. She wants your side of the story. I watched a hawk circle over the water, riding thermals in the morning light. Sophie, what if we did something different? I'm listening. What if we didn't fix this? What if we just built something new? There was a pause, then a laugh. Chef, I was hoping you'd say that. I've got a list of suppliers who've been asking about you. And a real estate agent who knows a space in Brooklyn. Small. But small is fine. Better than fine. We talked for an hour. By the time I hung up, I had the beginning of a plan. Not revenge, I didn't need revenge. Marcus was drowning in consequences he'd built for himself. Brick by brick, interview by interview. Every time he'd smiled for a camera and pretended my work was his inspiration, the investors called themselves. 2 of them, the ones who'd actually eaten at Corvo more than once, who'd complimented dishes to my face and then listened to Marcus explain his creative process without correcting him. Elena, this is Richard Chen. I owe you an apology. Several of us have been discussing the situation, and we'd like to propose something. We'd like to fund your next venture. Whatever you want to build, no Marcus, no Morrison family involvement. We should have done our due diligence better. We should have asked harder questions. We didn't, and that's on us. But we believe in your talent, and we'd like to make this right. I didn't answer right away. Just sat with it, watching the light change on the water. I'll think about it, I said finally. I need some time. Of course. There's no pressure. But Elena, for what it's worth, I ate at Corvo for the first time in 3 years last week. I told my wife it was the best pasta I'd ever had in New York. That was you. We should have known that was you. Victoria called once. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity won out. Elena. Her voice was ice. I don't know what you think you've accomplished, but you've destroyed my son's reputation. You've destroyed his business. 4 years of work. My work, I said quietly. 4 years of my work. You're being selfish. Marcus gave you an opportunity. He put his name on the line, he brought in investors, he built the brand. I built the food. Without that, there is no brand. You're his wife. You're supposed to support him. I did support him. For 4 years, I supported him while he took credit for every dish I created. I supported him through 14 interviews where he never once mentioned my name. I supported him when your friends asked him for recipes and he smiled and said he'd email them. My recipes. Victoria, I supported him right up until he told me not to come to the announcement because I didn't fit the narrative. Silence. Then, the investors are gone. The reservation book is empty. The James Beard Foundation released a statement. Marcus he's falling apart, Elena. He needs you. No, I said. He needs a chef. I'm not available. I hung up. The next 3 days, I stayed at the cabin. I cooked for myself simple things, the food I loved before restaurants became about investors and image. Eggs from the farm 2 miles down the road. Bread I baked in my grandmother's old Dutch oven. Greens I bought from the woman at the farmer's market who didn't know me as anyone but the lady in the cabin by the lake. I talked to Sophie every morning. We built a plan. A small restaurant, maybe 30 seats. No publicity team, no manufactured narrative. Just food. Real, honest food from a kitchen where everyone's name would be on the menu. Marcus tried 12 more times to reach me. I listened to one more voicemail, the one where his voice finally broke. Elena, I'm sorry. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize I thought we were a team. I thought I was helping by taking the spotlight, by being the face people saw. You never seemed to want the interviews, the photos, the attention. I thought I was protecting you from all of that. I know now that I was wrong. I was so wrong. Please come home. Please. We can rebuild Corvo together the right way. I'll make sure everyone knows. I deleted it halfway through. Because that was the thing Marcus had never understood. I didn't need protecting from the spotlight. I needed him to step out of my light. Jennifer Huang from The Times published her piece on a Thursday morning. I read it on my laptop, coffee in hand, watching fog lift off the lake. The headline: The Chef Behind Corvo. How Elena Morrison Built a Kitchen While Her Husband Built a Brand. It was thorough. She'd interviewed former colleagues, suppliers, kitchen staff. She'd pulled up old photos from Harvest, where I'd worked before Corvo, me in Chef's Whites, focused and young, already building the foundation of what I knew how to do. She'd found reviews from Corvo's early days that specifically mentioned the chef's technique, the chef's innovative approach, all written assuming Marcus was that chef. But the most devastating part was the sidebar. A simple comparison. Marcus's training 1 semester at CIA, dropped out versus mine, graduated top 5%, 3 years under Chef Sarah and Gwen, 2 stages in Italy. Marcus's kitchen experience, line cook for 6 months at a corporate steakhouse, versus mine 12 years in professional kitchens, working every station. The piece ended with a question. In an industry already struggling with gender equity and credit attribution, how did Marcus Morrison convince investors, media, and diners that he was responsible for cuisine he couldn't cook? And more importantly, how do we make sure this doesn't happen to the next talented chef who happens to be married to someone with better PR? The article went viral. By Friday morning, Corvo's Instagram comments were a graveyard. Health inspectors showed up apparently. Several concerned citizens had reported potential issues. The restaurant's rating dropped from 4.8 stars to 2.1 in 48 hours. Marcus left me one final voicemail on Saturday. The investors are out. All of them. The lease is up for renewal next month. And the landlord says with the negative press, she can't justify keeping us. Victoria thinks we should close quietly, try to reopen somewhere else under a different name in a year or two, once this blows over. But Elena, it's not going to blow over. Not without you. Everyone wants to know what you're doing next. They want to invest in you, feature you, celebrate you. And they should. You deserve all of it. I see that now. I wish I'd seen it before I lost everything. His voice cracked. I wish I'd seen you. I didn't call back. By December, I'd signed a lease on a small space in Red Hook, Brooklyn. Old warehouse bones, big windows, room for 30 covers if we pushed it. Sophie was my sous chef, officially this time, with her name on every piece of paperwork. Alex ran the line. We hired a woman named June who'd been running her own pop-up in Queens. She became our pastry chef. We called it Vesper. No publicity push, no investor pitch deck. We just opened the doors on a Tuesday in January and started cooking. The reservations filled up in 6 hours. Caroline Reeves came the first week. She sat at the counter, watching me work, and when I sent out her pasta, a simple cacio e pepe, the one Marcus had tried to explain on camera, she closed her eyes after the first bite. This, she said, is what I've been waiting for. Her review ran the following Sunday. 4 stars. The opening line: Elena Morrison doesn't need redemption. She never did anything wrong. But watching her cook in her own kitchen, under her own name, feels like witnessing an artist finally given a proper canvas. Marcus called one last time in February. I was at the restaurant, prepping for dinner service, when my phone rang. This time, I answered. Elena. Marcus. I saw the review. Congratulations. Thank you. A pause. I drove past Corvo yesterday. The space is empty. There's a for rent sign in the window. I didn't respond. There was nothing to say. I'm moving back to Boston. To my parents' house, just for a while, until I figure out what's next. My mother thinks I should go to business school. Maybe she's right. Maybe I'm not cut out for restaurants. Maybe not, I said. Another pause. Do you hate me? I thought about it. Really thought about it. No. But I don't forgive you either. You took 4 years of my work and made them about you. You stood in every spotlight that should have been mine and you smiled. That's not something I can just get over. I know. His voice was small. For what it's worth, I'm sorry. Truly. Okay. Could we ever? No, I said gently. We couldn't. I hung up before he could respond. That night, service was perfect. Every plate, every table, every moment in the kitchen felt like breathing. This was what I'd been building toward, what I'd been working for through every early morning and late night, through every investor meeting where I smiled and stayed quiet, through every interview where Marcus forgot to mention my name. After the last guest left, Sophie and I sat at the counter with a bottle of wine, not from Corvo's Reserve this time, but from a small vineyard in Oregon, sent by a winemaker who'd read about Vesper and wanted to collaborate. Chef, Sophie said, raising her glass. To new beginnings, to building something real, I corrected. We drank. Outside, Brooklyn sparkled in the February cold, and somewhere across the city, in an empty storefront that used to be called Corvo, my past was being painted over. But here, in this warm kitchen with its honest windows and its simple tables, I was already building the future. Mine. Finally, completely mine. I didn't need Marcus's empire to collapse. I just needed to step out of its shadow and let the light find me where I'd been standing all along.